What's good, family? I'm glad you made it to episode 2. It's still just me here. I like to introduce myself before I bring on any of my friends. But I thought that this episode, you could get to know me and you could get to know some of the reasons that I do what I do. And I mentioned in our first episode, in our intro episode, that the way I got into acting was because my mom forgot to pick me up from school, which she will definitely yell at me about saying. What happened is that my mom has always been my biggest fan and the hardest working person I know. And we moved out to the suburbs when my stepdad got a new job. So I was starting school 2 weeks late and probably several subjects ahead of everybody else. And I was so lost. I mean, I didn't really know anybody. Everybody looked very different. I went to a school in the south side of Chicago. So everyone looked like me. And then I went to the suburbs and about 5 people looked like me. And I always thought to myself that it was just for a little bit. And then we were going to go back to my old school, or I was going to keep up with all the kids from my old school, and we'd be good. And that didn't happen. So I had to make it in the suburbs somehow, right? My old school didn't have a theater department. We had computer building and we had music and we had gym and we had an auditorium, but we didn't really have a theater department. But there was this mural on the way to our cafeteria that I remember looking at. And there were some kids that were putting on a play in the mural. And I always remember thinking that I wanted to do it myself. So when I moved to the suburbs, there was choir and there was theater, both of which I didn't really get to do at my old school. So choir required that I be in 7th grade to get in. So I auditioned in 6th grade, got in, and then had to wait until 7th grade to do it. The theater department didn't require such things, but I didn't know when auditions were, so it didn't matter. Well, one day, my mom was a little bit late picking me up, and I was waiting in one of my teacher's classrooms, and she goes, "Do you want to audition for the play while you wait?" And I was like, "Okay, what do I have to do?" Turns out you just got to read some lines in front of what was a hallway full of students and the teacher that was the director. And then you find out if you got in. So she hands me a piece of paper. I memorized the lines. I couldn't even tell you what they could have been at this point. But it was for a show called Friday Night Fever, which was a show about a skater group and a bunch of nerds getting together to save the local roller rink. And I got cast, and I could not tell you the name of my character, but I was in this bright pink disco shirt and these khaki pants, and I was a nerd, and I got to sing about chess, and it was the most fun I'd ever had. Then I remember standing up there on stage with lights in my face, no glasses on, couldn't see a thing. And I remember thinking to myself that this is the best feeling I've ever had. And I mean, all of us have those little narcissistic moments where we're like, oh my God, this is all about me. But I wasn't a lead. I don't even know if I had speaking parts, to be completely honest. I don't remember. But I do remember smiling so hard that my face hurt. And I remember crying when the show run was over for that weekend. And I just remember loving it. And thinking to myself that this is exactly what I wanted to be doing with my life. It's so weird to experience knowing exactly what you want to do at the age of like 13. Because it's funny, right up until that point, I thought I wanted to be a massage therapist. I didn't know what a massage therapist was, but I was positive that was what I wanted to be. I looked up schools for massage therapy. I just thought to myself, I want to be a massage therapist. I want to give people massages, I guess. I want to make people feel better. And then I got on that stage, and any other job that I possibly could have had flew out of my head. I was an actor through and through. I was going to be an actor till I died. I was an actor. And then I proceeded for the next however many years. What is that? From sixth grade. I proceeded from sixth grade to college to pursue acting, which meant that I was in a play every single semester, I guess you could call them. I was in a play every single semester for all those years, and I was constantly acting. I was in every magical, every musical, every senior-led play. I was in all of them. I went to state, I went to regionals, I did competitions, I was in speech and debate, all of it. If I could perform, I was doing it. And then I got to college after all of that, after having acted for years upon years at this point. And I went to school for it. And I finally got to do what I wanted to do almost 24/7. You know, going to college for it, you really don't get into your major until like sophomore year, junior year. But you take a majority of the classes that you're going to be taking for your major. And I remember being so ready for the same schedule. Just we're doing 2 plays and a musical, and then there are going to be some, senior-led plays and the Christmas show and the competition plays and all of this. I was ready for it. I was excited for it. I was like, this has been my life for however many years. I'm ready for it to still be my life. And then I experienced real competition for the first time. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, being really good in high school and then getting to college and realizing that you're surrounded by other people who were also really good in high school. But it was jarring, especially because I am also one of those recovering honor roll kids who was just good at stuff just because. I didn't have to study really. Everything just sort of got memorized in like a compartment in my brain for when I needed to use it. I used to know the entire periodic table. I can still recite the Greek alphabet for no reason. I mean, my rote memorization skills have never lacked. And so I get to this point in college where other people are better than me. And so I get to this point in college where other people are good. And that's not to say that the people at my high school weren't good. I mean, I didn't get a ton of leads in high school either. But I was always a speaking role. I was always bringing up the trio. I was always in the show because I was good. And I get to college and other people are good. In fact, other people are great. Other people are better than me by a lot. And that was jarring because I'd never experienced other people being better than me by a lot. Other people being better than me, that's normal. That's someone who chose to take another AP class. That's someone who can sing on key a little bit better. That's fine. Other people being way better than me was overstimulating. And suddenly I wasn't in every play because I would audition for every play. We had to. It was part of the curriculum. And I wouldn't get in. I didn't know what a headshot was. I didn't know what a resume was. I wasn't given a day to learn the dance like I was in high school. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that I was good at, I felt really bad at. And I got to a point in college where I was going into these auditions positive that I wasn't going to get it. I would get it in my head and I'd be like, "Oh, well, they're auditioning, then I'm not going to why am I even here? I'm not going to get it." Or the only time that they ever need me is for the black show in February, is what I used to say to people. I'm not proud of it. But there were so few people who looked like me in my department, which was crazy because I went to a very diverse school. But there were so few people that looked like me in my theater department that it almost became a kind of joke that I was auditioning, not to other people, but to me. It was a joke. Plus, I was trying to figure out housing. I was trying to figure out tuition. I was trying to pass my other classes. Not everything in the world could be theater. Not everything in the world could be acting, unfortunately. And so I joined other things to pay for housing, and I spent a bunch of time working on scholarships and working jobs. I was always working. I was working probably 24/7. There were very few instances where I wasn't working. And I stopped acting. Even though I was going to school for it, which my mom was a very big proponent of, bless her heart, I love her for it. Even though I was going to school for acting, my freshman year, I probably acted the least I'd ever acted in my life. I went from probably spending every single day, including weekends, in a theater to rushing through my scene studies homework so that I could do something else and just stay alive and stay afloat. And acting almost became like a second thought to me. And it wasn't until I started realizing it that I even thought about how little I was acting and how much I was waiting for someone to give me a chance, waiting for someone to want to cast me. And the less I got cast, the more I got looked over, the less I wanted to do it. Until finally, by sophomore year, the end of it, I was thinking to myself, I have better things to do. I mean, this isn't paying my tuition. It's not paying my housing. I don't have time to be doing this. It's a fun major. I enjoy what I do. I'm really good in class. I cry on command, and I do all the steps you're supposed to do. I get into character. I do the showcases. I've killed it in musical theater. I've prepared more than anyone could possibly prepare for a musical theater class. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm still not getting cast for anything. I'm not doing shows. I'm not in rehearsals, and I'm busy. And so I get cast my junior year in a show called African Company. And it was a show about a African American company, theater company, African American theater company, putting on, I think it was King Lear. I can't remember, and that's bad. That's so bad. But I get cast in this show, and it was so bad. I went to the audition while I was supposed to be filming for a short film class. So everything was running together. So I had left those people in my dorm, set up and ready to go. And I rush over to the theater department and I'm in the audition. And again, in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to get it. So just give me like 20 minutes and I will be right back here. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do my monologue. They're going to tell me thank you. I'm going to come back. We're going to shoot this scene. And I end up reading for like 30 minutes. Just the audition. I walk in and I chemistry read with every single person. Every time they're trying out someone for a new role, I am reading for the exact same role in a chemistry read, Ann Johnson. And I was like, this is taking a really long time. And it's still in my head was like, I'm not getting it. Why do they keep calling me back? Like, I almost didn't allow myself to get my hopes up because I had just gotten so used to like basically 4 semesters of rejection at this point, to where I was like, I don't know why they don't just let me go. Like, I did it. This is as good as it's gonna get. And I had on these high heels for my original scene, and Melissa, the director, tells me, take those off. They're changing your entire walk. I don't want to see you walk in here with those on again. And I was like, she's mean. I love it. Because my original high school director was, I mean, she was mean, and she's mean in the way that like it's a tough love situation. And sometimes you need somebody to slap you in the face, metaphorically. I don't want anyone to hit me, but sometimes you need a slap in the face, metaphorically, to be like, no, I am trying to give you this job and I need you to do it right. So I take off the heels and I continue the rest of the audition with the heels off, reading for this character. And I realized no one else has read for her. And I'm like, that's weird. To be fair, once again, the amount of Black people in the department was not a lot. But there was at least 2 other girls that fit the same description that I did. And I know this because they got cast every time I didn't. And so I was like, there's at least one other person that I know should be here. And I remember I just kept trying to talk myself out of it. I was like, I'm not going to get it. There's no reason to get my hopes up for it. There's no reason to get excited about it. It's just going to let me down. And it wasn't until I saw the cast list that I was like, oh my God, I got it. A lead role. I got a lead role 4 semesters in, which does not seem like a lot now that I think about it. Now that I know that I was there for 4.5 years. 4 semesters does not seem like a lot, but it felt like a lifetime while it was happening. It was 2 years. 2 years of no's that felt like a lifetime of no's. So much so that when given the opportunity, when basically shown that I was it, like that, it was gonna be me. They were gonna cast me. I was still like, yeah, until that other girl shows up, and then I'm definitely not gonna get it. And that was such a messed up mindset, but it was where I was. And I was so stressed. And so I got cast, and it was super exciting. I was so ready for it. But I was also in something called the Residence Hall Association, which is super nerdy, but it paid my housing. And I had training for that too. So I had a meeting every Tuesday that I had to be at to be in the Residence Hall Association. And I had to tell them, I had to tell my director and the AD, I can't be there Tuesdays. And that felt awful. Now, I had joined the Residence Hall Association because I needed to pay for my tuition, because I needed to pay for my housing, and they offered a housing stipend, and I had responsibilities to do so that they would cover it. And I realized while I was acting that I didn't have time to act now. I had made myself so busy trying to survive that I didn't have time for rehearsal. Did I still do it? Yes, absolutely. I still did the show. Yes. But I barely had time for it. I was running from work or a meeting to rehearsal, like across campus. My step counter, 15,000 a day, easy. I was sprinting across campus. My body was warm, my voice was shot. I was struggling. And I remember I just had an off day. I had had to audition. They were doing Legally Blonde, and like I said, auditioning was a requirement. And I can't remember if this all happened in one day, but in my memory it felt like it all happened in one day. And I come back from auditioning from Legally for I come back from auditioning for Legally Blonde, and I'm in these thigh high black boots, tight blue jeans, uh crisp white shirt, nothing like my character in African Company. And they hadn't told the director that we were required to audition. So I was late for rehearsal. Everyone else had already gone before me and they had already made it into rehearsal. It was like a 5-person cast. And I was late. I was late in these giant heels, which Melissa had very clearly said not to wear on her stage ever again. And I had been missing warm-ups because I was working before. I literally worked up until like up until 20 minutes before rehearsal. And then I used that 20 minutes to get to rehearsal. And then I got on stage. I was also messing up all of my lines because I didn't have time to memorize them. So I was messing up my lines. I was in those heels she hated. I was late and I'd been missing warm-ups, and she laid into me. She was like, "Are you Meryl Streep?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." And she was like, "Because you're sure acting like Meryl Streep." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "You're acting like you're the best actor here. The only thing that you can do is find your light. You can't remember your lines. You're wearing shoes on my stage that I've told you many times not to wear. And you were late. And you've been missing warm-ups. Until you are Meryl Streep and you know what the fuck you're doing, I'm going to need you to get it together." And I cried. I did. I cried. Not on stage. I said, "Okay, yes, ma'am, I understand." And I did rehearsal. But boy, afterwards, I sobbed like a baby. I was sitting in a dressing room crying. I walked back to my dorm crying. I sat in my dorm crying. The whole day was a mess. And I could not, for the life of me, figure out why she was being so mean to me. I was like, I'm trying. I'm doing my best. Is that not good enough for you? But I wasn't doing my best. And I realized that. And that's my biggest takeaway from that experience. I wasn't doing my best and I needed someone to point it out to me. I was phoning it in. I was honors studenting it. I was basically relying on my natural ability to hopefully get me through all of this, to hopefully somehow make it to where I just was gonna be good, you know? And that doesn't work when everyone else is better than you, because when everyone's good and you're okay, then you seem good. When everyone is great and you're good, then you seem good. But when everyone else has it together and you don't, you look awful. And that's what I realized. I had put so much time into surviving that I forgot to actually practice my craft. I was phoning it in class because I was good enough to do that. I was phoning it in at work because I was good enough to do that. And I needed someone to tell me that they expected better of me before I could expect better of myself. I needed someone to tell me that if I wasn't going to get it together, then I needed to stop doing it because I was wasting everyone's time. And as mean as it was, she was right. She was absolutely correct. I thought she hated me. I really did. I was fully convinced. I was like, this woman hates me and she is going to kick me out of the show. And I'm sure she thought about it, but she did not do that. Thank goodness. And I did get it together. I went over my lines over and over and over again. I was sobbing in my monologue. It was a sad monologue, so I should have been. But I was working on my character work, my Stanislavski, my magic if, my substitution was on point. I used to have this memory in my head, and I'm not going to repeat it here because I'm going to start crying if I do, but there was a scene where I had to come on stage and I had to work up to crying, which meant for me, I had to already be on the brink of tears so that I could cry, baby. And I used to have this memory, and I would work myself up just enough to get to the point where I was like, okay, if I think about it anymore, I'm going to cry. And then I would walk out on stage and I would do my monologue, and then I'd get to the point where I needed to start crying, and baby, the floodgates would open and I would just sit there sobbing. We performed in front of a bunch of high schoolers. They felt so bad for me. And I was like, this is it. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. This is what I used to do every single day, 365 in high school. And I let myself convince myself that I wasn't good at it anymore, that I had better things to do than act, that I had better things to do than this job that wasn't paying my tuition, that wasn't paying my housing. And I let other things get in the way of the thing that I loved. And it took a director telling me to get it together or get off her stage for me to get it together. And I think about that every time I have a moment where I'm like, this isn't paying my bills. I have better things to do. I need to do something else. Because it's not about what, this is going to sound so lame. It's not about what it can do for you. It's not what acting can do for you. It's about what you're willing to do to keep acting. And in the words of my director, if you're not willing to get it together, then it's time to get off the stage. And that's okay. If I had decided that's it, I'm done after this show, because I wasn't going to, leave the show. But if I had decided that's it after this show, I'm done, I'm changing majors, this is too hard, I don't want to do this anymore, that would have been me deciding that I either needed to get it together or get off the stage. And I needed to get off the stage. But I didn't decide that. And in a different world, I might have, and I might have been a fantastic lawyer or a great nurse. I like to think that I would be good at just about anything I chose. I just happened to choose acting. So, you get to decide if you want to get it together or get off the stage. And there's nothing wrong with whatever you choose. But if you choose to get it together, it means that you have to genuinely get it together. You do have to start taking it seriously. You do have to decide what you're willing to do to keep doing this. Because it's very hard to keep doing this. But it's worth it. And it means a lot at the end of the day for you to choose to keep doing it. So, after all of that, after a 30-minute deep dive into my life, I hope that I have inspired you somewhat to get it together. And if I have, then this podcast is already doing what I hoped it would do. So, until next time, thank you so much for joining me. And we all start in our basement, but I hope to see your face on a billboard someday. See ya.